Next item on the agenda is attendance zones. Steve, we're going to start with secondary.
What we have are three secondary boundaries as drafted at the last meeting. One of the requests that came through was whether or not we could get demographic data connected to that. So this shows, and I'll roll back up to those maps when you're ready. Take it down a notch here. So what you have here is the total of students in each of the three categories across the district at the high school level, and then the ranges for City, West, and Liberty. The numbers here show in each of those three catchment areas which elementary school those children attend, which junior high those kids attend, which high school those kids attend. These are the future capacity numbers for each of the three junior highs, each of the three high schools, and then that shows, based on those future capacity numbers, what today's enrollment numbers will fill that school to from a percentage capacity. So again, I can scroll back up, and those are the maps that we looked at the last work session.
What was the southeast capacity again?
Southeast future capacity number is 864.
These projections are based on, they're not projections, they're based on current.
These are October 1. These are our certified enrollment numbers as of October 1.
So by the time Liberty opens up, these numbers will be probably higher.
Right, so we'll have a full school year next year and then into that fall before Liberty opens. Yeah.
On the other hand, there still will be students at T.
Yes, and actually that question was asked by someone, the general public said, why is Tate on here? When our student information system rolls data up into Guide K-12, it gives each child a homeschool assignment, and that's based on where they're currently in school. I can't send those students back to their homes, if you will, and tell you whether they are City High residents or West High residents from the attendance zone standpoint. So I didn't want to lose those kids, so I put them in here so that we knew how many kids were at Tate, recognizing we wouldn't necessarily know which home attendance zone they're in.
Through the maps, or?
If you want to look at the maps, I can blow those up a little bit. The Liberty map. West map's always a little bit harder because that outline area for Weber is so big that on Guide K-12 you wind up having to shrink it down so far in order to get a map that you can take a picture of.
And these are just based on the building block aggregate from the previous.
Yeah,
FAQ?
yeah, and then conversation at the board table and submissions from some of those hand-drawn maps from some of the board members. You want to see a map? You want to see data?
Data's helpful.
This question was also asked, so I'll just volunteer this too. If you look across the top, you see percentage numbers for each of the three major categories. Given where we're at in the process, I think reporting them in 10% increments prevents us from having any identifiable numbers connected with any of the attendance zones. You'll see that when we go back to the elementary attendance zones also.
So Laura, you feel like this is a kind of a final mode? Because if it's in a final mode, we can get more specific on the numbers.
I think the rest of the board needs to weigh in.
Well, I'd be a little curious also to see a chart like that one. I don't know if we're ready yet to do it, but for the existing secondary feeder plan with the elementary attendance changes we think might happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw your request today. I can, I think I have conceptually what you're looking for. I think I have that down. I haven't done it yet.
Because the previous one, I guess, was based on, for example, all of current Wickham going to west. We know all of it won't go west. And if any portion of North Lincoln ends up not at Lincoln anymore, that would change those numbers. And so it's hard to know how it looks compared to this. Although I know we haven't settled exactly where those lines will be.
And I know for those of you that have been working with me, I appreciate your patience because sometimes it's hard for me to figure out what you're looking at. So some of you have been very patient in terms of drawing maps and taking pictures of them and sending them to me, and that helps immeasurably for me to figure out where to draw lines in there. So, you know, from my perspective, moving forward, if collectively or individually as the board or board members, if we can work with that system, it makes it a lot easier to do a transfer from it looks like this to draw it like that.
Can I ask you a question just? So, under the current plan, you know, Kirkwood has an option where to go to junior high. They don't have an option for high school. I know that our practice has been during the first year of a new school, no voluntary transfers.
Out of that school, right.
Right, but after the first year, any place with capacity, you could at least ask for it. If there's certainly going to be capacity at West, do we expect that Kirkwood students, Kirkwood area students would choose to go to West?
We have not asked them that, so I don't know the answer to
And they
that.
would get a bus.
I don't know the answer.
And I guess I have the same question about Alexander. I mean, we might not have the same degree of capacity at City to you know, have available for them.
I would presume, and certainly based on these numbers, as you look down here, you know, the current practice of the board is that schools that, at the elementary level, we allow voluntary transfer based on the number of open seats in a school at that grade level. So the number of open third grade seats at Horn, second grade seats at Mann, fourth grade seats at Wood. So if you want to transfer your child, voluntarily transfer your child into an elementary school, we look at it by grade level because of the way that we do the assignment of teachers and then classrooms based on aspirational class size goals. Secondary is a little different because kids take lots of different classes. So at the secondary level, we look at capacity of the building. The past practice has been if the building is under capacity, that is that there's open seats in the building, then we allow voluntary transfer in. So currently the board has voted, prior to your arrival, but has voted to close City and West to voluntary transfers, and also Southeast to voluntary transfers, because right now they have more students than capacity, so therefore there's no open seats there. Northwest and North Central are both open right now to voluntary transfer, even though North Central is very close to capacity. So given that practice, if we followed that practice, looking at the numbers that are up here, then by the first year that Liberty High were to open, technically City and West would be open to voluntary transfer from students going back and forth between those two, but not from Liberty to City or West. Southeast would be open again as Northwest and North Central are to students, so you could go between any of the three junior highs, and then that second year, 18-19, all three of the high schools would be open under that practice. But again, voluntary transfers do not include transportation.
And are not, I mean, it's a gamble, right, from year to year.
Right.
It's an annual.
Right, it's based on annual review, which is a little less problematic at the secondary level just because we look at overall numbers. I think you could look at the overall numbers and as a parent have some level of reassurance of what the next year and perhaps the next year would look like. Certainly at junior high it's only 2 years, so it's not like an elementary commitment where you're looking at 7 years, you're looking at 2 and 4. So maybe a little bit easier to look forward that far and decide whether or not that's a reasonable risk to take as a parent.
Yeah.
That probably is a question to struggle with, right? For Liberty in 2017, what does happen with that voluntary transfer piece? Is, you know, because there will be the likelihood there'd be some room there for additional students on that end. So if that was something you were going to open up between the three high schools, I think that's something the board will need to wrestle with and give some direction on about if that is wide open or if we're gonna look at that a little bit differently for the 3 high schools.
So Stephen, I'm not sure that maybe you already answered this question, but so then when we opened Liberty in 2017, if you're assigned to Liberty, you can't transfer out.
That's
But
correct.
if you're assigned to West, can you transfer in?
Or city.
Oh, you can transfer into Liberty. I should
Yes.
heard it the first time.
Open to
Alright.
transfer in, not to transfer out.
So, since, transfers are based on capacity, that's a good segue. Looking at the numbers here, I really worry about the capacity strains on day one with nearly 87% of, with 87% with the junior high capacity,
Yes.
right?
So you're looking at
And-
right here?
The
This is-
southeast.
This is your
Right.
southeast number?
Right.
Oh, sorry, you can't see that because this is a.
No, that's, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, so
I
that's,
got it, I
this is
got
the
it.
city high column,
Yep,
and that's the west side column,
And
that's
then
Liberty.
90
And I heat mapped them, so the colors are actually heat mapped, not school colors.
right, because, yeah. I have definite concerns there. I also, when it comes to balancing barriers to education, the board decision in May of 2015, balance was very much part of that decision, and as was through discussions with the community, both at the beginning and the end, as was keeping groups of students together. For me, when it comes to the balance end of it, starting off, and I would like to see, as Director Liebig asked, just kick things off, to see, with if we change elementary feeder patterns, how that would look with the matriculation patterns with the May of 2015 secondary decision. Okay, but when I look at the balance from May of 2000, the balance that we strove for in May of 2015, recognizing that over time disparity will occur, starting off with things very even with regard to the 3 identified barriers to educational outcomes, starting off as even as possible. When disparity occurs, you're starting from a nearly even playing field and going from there. But when I look at starting off with maximized crowding at, or darn close to maximum capacity at City and at Southeast, and 20 percentage points higher on the barrier identified as low SES, I worry about the continued separation. When we start off 20 percentage points disparate, it could potentially get significantly greater, especially when we talk about the development plan for, around Liberty High, Scanlon Farms, so on and so forth.
Are the numbers up top the whole cohort, or is that a city number? or
That is a catchment cohort, so
Yeah,
this
so-
tells you how many kids live in the city high catchment area, the west high catchment area, the Liberty High. So it is not disaggregated by just elementary or junior high
Right.
or high school kids. So that gives you a snapshot of what the entire catchment
Is
area
that
looks
because we're limited as to what you can tell us?
Yeah, that's part of it. The smaller I drill down, the more likelihood is I wind up with identifiable information. My thought was to start with the catchment area data, and as we get closer to a final, then what I'll do is I'll drop down here and I'll give you those same numbers underneath the elementary, the junior high, and the high school.
See, last time, these scenarios were very different, right? Or they were whole schools, but it wasn't like a neighborhood.
Right, yeah, I know why anymore.
So if we're okay, if we think this is the scenario, we can go give the detailed numbers, but we don't want to give detailed numbers and then tweak it. So are there any tweaks to this scenario? Or are we? So we can come back with more detailed numbers on this and more detailed numbers on the base current plan.
I can do that.
And then we can put them side by side.
I can do that.
Further discussion, anybody? Phil, Tom? Tasha? All right, want to go through the elementary?
If nobody's going to say anything, I do just want to raise the question. There's an area of Twain that's south of Highway 6 that I had Steve pull out as a building block. So it would be under the FAQs.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So I don't know what you guys think, but if we needed to pull some more students, it's only 18 junior high students. No, 18 high
That's
school
bad,
students,
sorry.
15 junior high students. That's not a lot.
What page is it?
It is page 9 of the FAQs.
So
Sorry, what was the?
you're saying that those 18 students would go to Twain and then go to,
Well, this secondary map is pulling part of Twain. So if we needed to pull more students instead of splitting from a different elementary school, that would be another group from the same elementary school.
When you say that, you mean Lake Ridge?
No, the Twain Island.
just talking about,
It's south of Highway 6.
Isn't it Lake Ridge?
no, Lake Ridge is,
Lake Ridge is-
Lake Ridge is down.
Lake Ridge is
further.
down here in the corner.
It's like where the shelter house is, south gate.
I don't know, Melissa, just
No,
it's
no,
Gilsey
no.
Street there.
Okay, sorry.
But you said in addition to the other,
The island.
that'd be Lake Ridge, yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I was thinking the other Lakeview or whatever.
Well, that helps for
Oaks is now
streets.
called.
There's a lot of Cedar this and like that.
Yeah. So I don't, I just putting it out there.
So are you saying these kids would go, where would they go? West.
Potentially
Oh, this would be
northwest.
West.
Mhm.
I guess for me, the problem is that it is just 18 kids, is that with what we learned through 2014 and 15 is people saying keep groups of students together, and parsing out 18 students out of their 200 plus elementary school class and sending them elsewhere, that's, you know,
Well, it's
that.
not just 18 because it's the island as well.
Depends what you do with that.
It's 18 in this section, but it would actually be
I see.
helping in that regard, what
I see.
you're talking about.
I got you.
You know, and the problem is nobody wants to leave City High. Nobody's gotta go, we're gonna have 3 high schools, nobody wants to go. And there's really nobody who goes to Southeast who is particularly convenient to go to Northwest. Not saying anything profound, I just think that's the problem, you know. It's hard to choose.
They're over there. There's 66 kids in the island, the Lake Ridge Island, 66 high school kids in the island right now. 58 at City, 3 at West, 5 at Tate.
So would you like to see that moved to West? Be nice.
I would like to know what the rest of you think.
Yes.
This, it should be a combined effort, not just what I think, so I'd like to hear from others.
Sounds like a yes.
And again, I'm supportive of a clean feeder system. Have a difficult time after what we learned in 2014 and 15. I have a difficult time being supportive of something other than a clean feeder system. That's just me.
I think
Maybe
that's a
I'm stuck.
fundamental issue with this whole, I mean, you're, in this scenario,
And we kind of talked at the last work session.
you've got lots of splitting elementaries, right? So we'll let the debate begin in the end.
Is there anything else?
And so if we add that, will that come up in this scenario that we're talking about for the next time?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I'm tracking that. So one of the things that I've got there is Twain south of 6 and Twain Island, and move those to west.
We already had the island there.
Yeah, but I'm just making sure I'm
Just
confirming,
adding
so
that.
those go to west, all right.
Because most of you already got it, then you mean, under the current plan, it doesn't go there.
No, in this scenario.
Oh, in this scenario, okay. There's a little bit of, there's a weird thing about the map F, which is that it was made before the decision was made to bring the island into Twain. So there's no little red spot where you would expect to see it on those maps of 5F and 5C. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But as I understand it, they, and the current plan, they would go to City Town.
That's right. Already?
All right, back to. So I'm gonna just scroll down to the bottom. So these are essentially attendance areas for each of the elementary schools. So give me a shout if you want to stop at any of these.
On page 2, 3, 4, no change. 5. Page 5 is the first. Lincoln was the first. I think we had it as a building block, but
Blow this up a little bit.
Or there was some change.
Again, just a reminder for people in the audience, the individual dots on there represent student counts, but it could be a household, so there could be more than one child there. It could be an apartment building, there could be multiple kids there from multiple families. The different colors and shapes represent elementary, junior high, and high school, and represent kids going to different schools.
Going to the comment of the gentleman earlier, that little red dot,
That's
couple
right.
red dots down there, how many students that represent?
I don't know, I was trying to actually do it while he was talking there, I had the software up. I think it's, I think there are 10 kids total, but I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure I have my filter set right, I was trying to pay attention and do that at the same time.
we would have had that. It's in probably the last one.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's
It's in
actually a
FAQs.
building block that has the count.
I don't disagree. If it doesn't move the needle, then
Did we, hang on. Sorry, go ahead.
Roll down.
so we could look at that with that right.
I'm curious about what happened to Alexander on this set. But I don't want to get ahead of things. I guess that's still coming. It's the last page, I guess.
All right.
How about this, Steve? Let's start from the
I'm on
top.
page.
Start from the
Yeah,
top.
let's start from
But
the
just-
top.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
go.
I'm on page 12.
I was gonna start from the bottom, I can start from the top.
Start from the top.
All right. So
First
here we
year
have
was the same as what.
Grant, which I believe is exactly the same as last time I
Last
looked
time.
at it. And Penn.
Penn was the same as last time. That's Penn. Don't go too fast. Gardner, I think was in the last building block.
I believe this is exactly the same too.
Van Allen's the same. Again, just keeping it within 2 miles. Wickham should be the same. Kirkwood is just showing the current boundary.
Correct. I made sure
Did we
that.
change that one?
No. It's just the current boundary. Orville Central is just the current boundary. Lincoln was the first new, adding the man, oh, hold on, man. Adding the man island and a little bit of the horn.
So, and not all of Man, because remember this was an area we discussed that's off of
That-
Jaysville Road.
Went to Shimmick,
Right.
yep. All right. Orlog is the same except that little bit that went to
Lincoln.
Lincoln, which has no kids, from a Orlog perspective. Horn took out the kids that are bused and the little bit that went to Lincoln. Now Horn's still capacity challenge, right?
Yeah, we'll see that when we get down there.
It's not one to. Weber's the same, plus the little bit of the horn. Hills is effectively the same, I think, right?
Yeah.
Shimmick added a little bit of Man Island, is that the only change there?
Yes.
Man, instead of the Man Island, took a couple of the northwestern Hoover neighborhoods and a little bit of the Longfellow. What's the street that one runs? Is it
Iowa Ave.
Ave.
Iowa Ave.
And this street here actually feeds north, not south. So
Right.
we went around there. That was from the walkability map.
So it's a geographical consideration based on where the streets kind of flowed into.
Iowa Ave also happens to be the divider for addresses in Iowa City, just FYI, for north and south addresses.
So Lemmy included the northeast Hoover neighborhood, and then the neighborhood east of Scott that asked for Lemmy. And the rest of east of Scott went to Hoover East. Longfellow sent a few of the north kids to Man, took the southwest Hoover kids, and then the bottom boundary is the railroad tracks, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
It's the area between Kirkwood Avenue and the railroad tracks.
Just kind of a natural barrier. Lucas included Bon Air and Saddlebrook, but I don't know, Saddlebrook could
Say that again, how should,
could go to Wood. We'll have to look at the demographics numbers. Could go to Hoover East.
Just for walkable purposes, it makes your Bonaire, Saddlebrook, and Sycamore Woods are within walking distance.
you're saying this should go to Woods?
It's just down the street, like
Yep.
literally the neighborhood, the kids across the street go to Wood, and then the rest of them are bus stop.
Yeah. On the other hand, they did just get moved. So we'll be moving them twice in a period of 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but they would be moving outside of their neighborhood. You see that huge pink section? It's only industrial. So it would just be those kids right there in that corner.
Oh, I understand why it makes sense to go to Woods still.
What changes?
I'm worried about taking them out of Alexander Hall.
No.
What changes is we're expanding Wood. There's 100%
Yeah, I know,
expansion.
although I'm not sure why.
Well, if we don't put more kids in there, it's not gonna make sense to expand. Because they only got like 300 some kids now. And they would only be adding about 60 or more. I don't know.
I think it's the whole thing. But so we could look at Wood.
What bothers me is the effect of that on Alexander, so why don't I wait till we get to that and make sure.
Well, the intent here, I mean, again, a lot of things interact, right? So the intent was to lessen the secondary boundaries, assuming Alexander's going west, and to help some of the kids on the east side of that boundary continue to go to southeastern city. So this is another way to get.
No, I figured that's what the intent is for.
Yeah.
But I'm just, that leaves Alexander without those homes. And then to make up for it, we're bringing in the Tuena Island, sending it to Alexander. And to me, that kind of just breaks up the Alexander neighborhood in a pretty awkward way. And it just seems like that it's a place where we should be really trying to be careful about trying to make it as attractive as it can be to people who might move into the new developments down there. And I don't think this is what the doctor ordered.
Let's keep going down to, let's get down, so Hoover East didn't change any, right? That's pretty much where it's been. Twain picked up some of the Longfellow area and the rest remained kind of the same. There's no kids in the east part of that pink area. Would remain the same, but Saddlebrook Minor could be an option. And then I think the reason we picked these guys up is when you get on the streets over here, there's a direct connection.
Mhm.
Well,
So, Cherry, True Blood. Did I do that, or did you?
No, I did. I was trying to blow it up so people would
All right,
see.
man.
We're good. I'll stop looking at this.
So Cherry Two Blood, I mean, there's a street that goes right through here, or you come down here and go right to the school. So this area is gonna be it's very connected. In fact, it's more connected than over here, right?
Yeah.
This isn't connected at all.
It's not.
What's it gonna do to Alexander's FRL then?
We'll see at the end, it's actually, I think it was 60 to 70, or what was it? I mean, that's a challenge in that whole geographical area.
Oh,
That's why I printed it off on
Alexander
big
was
paper.
70, 80. That's what I'm saying.
It's basically, you know, keep it the same.
That's right here, Chris. So again, I did the same thing here. So you've got the catchment area. So this is the total number of kids that live in the catchment area. Then down here, this will give you the number of kids that live in the elementary area, the future capacity of the elementary school, the percentage of that capacity, and then that's heat map going across. So the ones that are green are the lowest impact, and the ones that are red and orange are the highest impact. So I'll just scroll over here for a minute. And they're heat mapped
So-
across the entire district.
So
So you'll
the
see
question
the red
is,
ones on the other one.
we went down to what is it, like it's 60-something%?
That's after the expansion, right? Is that-
This is after the expansion. So there's 353 elementary kids there today. 284 of them are current Wood kids. You can't see that going all the way across. So there's 508 kids there, or 508 seats there after the expansion.
Here's your 95 right there.
Yeah. So the 95 would be plus the 353, almost 4.
So that puts you at 426 with a capacity of 381 right now.
And again, those are numbers like if we did it today, right?
Yeah, so there'd be if you had that attendance area for Lucas today, you'd have 426 kids there and there's 381 seats there.
So pulling them out makes sense actually, because then it won't be over capacity. And
It's just-
Wood has room.
Wood doesn't have room today, it will when we're done.
Okay.
So remember, I put all the future capacity numbers in there so we can look down the road.
But it's right in there.
One of the things that worries me about the North Corridor aspect of this is, again, if you're using today's numbers for schools that are going to open 2019, if you look at the North Corridor schools, we're supposed to have about 500 more students in 2019 than we have today.
Well, and this is that chicken or the egg thing that we were talking last night at Garner, Director Liebig, was that, you know, if we move towards making a decision, then we can get better data from our demographers as far as enrollment projections.
All right, but we already do have at least some enrollment projections.
Some,
And we know it's going to be higher in 2019 than it would be
But
today by a lot.
but they're aggregated by attendance zones, not by neighborhoods.
If we get clear who is in that northern catchment area, so who's going to Christine Grant, Gardner, Van Allen, then we know, at least we know the secondary impacts, right?
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I mean,
I keep coming back to, I mean, nobody likes split feeders, but, you know, open grant, you know, and the way these scenarios show, again, if we didn't open grant and put the Garner addition on, we'd have at least 500, depending on how you count it, 700 or more, too many students in the North Corridor schools, depending on which schools you're counting. So I kind of feel like if we're going to open grant, it's, you know, if we don't give every one of those seats to a North Corridor kid, we're still going to have overcrowded schools up there, and we're probably undercounting to have overcrowded schools. And so then to send Lincoln, North Lincoln, you know, some portion of it to grant, well, that's not going to, those seats aren't doing anything then to overcrowd, to decrowd the North Corridor schools. And then if we open it at less than full capacity, then there's a bunch of seats there that aren't being used to decrowd North Corridor schools. So, as much as I don't like splitting feeders, to me, I'm kind of drawn to the idea of keeping North Lincoln at Lincoln. we do have capacity on the east side of the elementary schools. And then, you know, if it makes sense for some portion of them to go to North Central and Liberty, to me that seems better than the alternative of continued crowding in the North Florida schools.
Well, I agree it's a chicken and egg, because I think if we agree they're going north, then we'll make sure the facilities master plan accommodates that, right? We already know we need to add 2 or 3 more years on the current plan. We know we're gonna, we
We
know.
have capacity already on the east side for them. Why would we build new capacity for them?
Well, I think it's to fix a defect that we've had this island forever, and maybe that shouldn't be the case.
No.
So, I mean, I think we need to add a school in the north and a school in the west from a facilities master plan standpoint, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
The other thing
again,
we're-
if we get clear on where we think the kids are going, then we can get good numbers in terms of what the
Let me go back
catchment
to
area
that.
is, and then we can, what's that?
Do you want me to go back to them?
The other thing that worries me about it is, it seems we're thinking at least that to some part of the growth around Seattle Farms is not captured by our current projections. So to the extent that's true, that's just more
Right.
for our kids that we don't have a plan for.
Right.
And again, we brought up, we're not even sure the current grant location is the right one. And we've already talked about possibilities of other kinds of things, and Steve brought up last time, or 2 sessions ago, you know, instead of a 10-year look at 2 elementary schools with some amount of span, there's a second one at the end of the 10, we're looking at it a whole lot closer than that. But if you establish it, I mean, it is a chicken and egg, but there's something, sort of like assuming the chicken's gonna lay the egg rather than having the egg, so to speak. So we can say, we're gonna do the northern attendance ones, and then let the demographers decide, and, you know, I mean, go along with what, Director Weaver has said, you know, on the one hand, there's not a whole lot of hurry. On the other hand, it would be kind of nice to know, but it seems to me, and maybe this is where you're headed, Chris, that we'll just end up messing with those zones again
Right.
after we get, you know, so.
So-
Is it a handle for the demographers? Okay.
So
I
I
hear the demographer building blocks.
This would be the
limited
middle,
numbers.
this would be the middle ground. This would be the middle ground I'd be okay with. These are the kids we think are going to Christine Grant, Van Allen, Gardner, and Penn. That whole big area. And we're gonna send you to the closest school to be determined in the future.
Well, yeah, well, we can't use all the input stuff, because about 1,000 people wanted to do the pen, and virtually no, I mean, it just spread this whole thing out, virtually nobody wants to go to New Hoover.
And using
If you take a look
2015
at the
numbers is
input.
still problematic there.
People wanna go to the closest school, that's what they tell us.
So-
A lot of there's 1,000 kids
So-
there. Maybe they do still.
Well, here's the other thing, yeah, but guys, come on. People also gave us 3 choices, so there's no neighborhood in North Liberty that gave us 1 choice. They all said Penn, Gardner. I mean, there were multiple neighborhoods that thought through, I get it, here's my 3 priority choices.
So-
I think if you said, here's the 4 schools, and you're gonna, at the end, you're gonna go to the closest school, but this is the big pie, you're gonna divide it up 4 ways. Then it resolves our secondary challenge in terms of figuring that out. And it allows some
To the extent
flexibility.
that people are gonna get, kids are gonna get bused to places they don't necessarily want to go.
Well, so for me, when I look at the grant, when I look at, wow, don't move that. When I look at the Grant Elementary Zone, for me, defining the southern portion of that has a higher degree of urgency to it than defining the northern portion of it. By that, I mean that right now, people who live in North Wickham and North Lincoln that are right, I mean, many of them can see Liberty construction occurring. I think that the important definition is defining the southern border of what the border between where, say, Wickham and North Wickham would be, and North Lincoln and Lincoln would be, if they were to be part of Grant. But then the yellow part, the northern part, I mean, that, considering that we're having discussions about yet another elementary school, I would assume, likely in the northern part of, of the district, where there's a high density of kids, say in Cedar Springs and Fox Run, that there's less urgency to define the northern portion pending whatever happens in the next 3 years, pending what our demographer report is. But the real urgency is to start having conversations for defining, as you said, the secondary. Because right now, if you, I think part of the confusion we heard last night was a nice lady over in the corner at Garner, and we've all heard this, saying, what's the deal? Right across the street, right across Dubuque Street from the Liberty Construction is going to west because it's defined as Wickham right now. And North Lincoln is defined as going to city right now. A green zone in the lower right of the defined area there. So I understand where the confusion is coming from.
There's two ways to fix it. You can draw elementary 10 zones, or you could just draw the line between Liberty and West.
And like I said, for me, the urgency is to define the southern portion of Grant more than the northern portion, to answer that secondary question, because
Yeah, that's right.
16 months.
Yep. There's one other thing while on the topic, I was looking at the projections and just isolating out the North Corridor schools, and in the last 3 years of the FMP that we currently project out, they show no growth at all in North Corridor. 4 kids, 6 kids. And it must just be because, there's a limit to what they can do as far as looking at plats and things that far out, but I have to think that might change once we get updated projections. To me, chicken egg is fair, but at some point it becomes cart before the horse. I think we just really could use some better projections before we go about drawing lines, especially if we're just our projections might end up just causing us to redraw the lines.
Are we gonna have to make adjustments anyway?
Easier said than done.
I mean, none of this is easy, trust me, none of this is easy. I'm just saying,
I agree.
you're talking about 2023, that's really far. I hope people would expect that we will come back to boundaries in the next 10 years about some of this will change depending on how communities grow. I have to believe we have an intelligent enough community to know that just because it's this way right now in 2016 doesn't mean it won't change in 2020.
Well, I guess I'm just worried we're gonna have to make adjustments before the school's even open.
Well, yeah, but what can we do now in the next 4 or 5 years versus the next 15? I'm not
By the
saying we
way,
don't forward plan.
Yeah, and it's happened, right? In high growth areas, I live in a high growth area, and there's kids that went to Wickham or Patton, and went to Van Allen, and went to Gardner. And that's what happens when you're in a high growth area. Now, it was only possible for like one grade level, or maybe two, I think it was one grade level.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about literally, we draw boundaries today for these 2019 schools. A year from now, we might realize it needs to be different before anybody's even moved. And then, what was the point?
I think we make adjustments.
Better.
I think it's different than saying ripping out all the boundaries. It's different to say we'll have to make adjustments because of growth. I think our community is intelligent enough to know, hey, we're just way over capacity here. We made these in good faith, knowing that change could happen, but I feel like not making something and doing something will just keep us having this conversation for the next year. So if we can come up with something solid and get that information, and we can try to plan from there. But the thing is, when you make a plan, you have to also plan to make adjustments with the plan. And I think that we just have to make a plan knowing that there's an area here where we're gonna have to make some adjustments. I mean, that's just life in general. And so everybody is feeling a little bit of the angst of these boundaries. Some schools are not being touched at all, some should be. But I'm just saying, like, we have to do something. I mean, we can't, unless you have a magic wand, or you can see the future. I really don't know, other than making a plan and also knowing that whoever is sitting at this table have to be flexible enough to make adjustments. And families can adjust. We have very resilient families who can make an adjustment of going from one school to another.
I know we have to make adjustments, but I don't think we should put ourselves in a needlessly in a position of doing something now that we probably are gonna have to adjust before these schools.
Sorry,
I would just say
we
until we
don't.
are closer to 2019
And
and
I think-
have better information, even if it just means next year, we've got our enrollment.
So I think that conversation is different when you're talking about the eastern portion of the district versus the North Liberty, North Coralville portion of the district. Because we know that Hoover East is opening as its own entity in 2019. We know that. And so if we don't work to define that, then when do we do it? A year before the school opens?
Well, we got 3.5 years still. I'm not saying I have to wait till a year before the school opens.
But
I think we should wait till we have updated enrollment.
17's the bond year.
So you do it,
18's
And
the
we
year
might want to
before.
wait and see if the bond passes.
that's what but it's being built, it's opening.
I know that, but the additions on the east side are bond funded.
And 17's the bond, and 18 will be the year before, so.
Well, from 17 to 19 is 2 years though. You did it in the fall of 2017
We
into
got-
the early
Jen-
spring of 18.
Yeah, but if you
Wouldn't
look at our
happen
board
tonight.
now, let's just be honest, let's have a little honest moment. If you look at our board now and how we're struggling with this, I really don't believe in 1 year we're gonna be able to come up with this if we've been struggling with 2 different boards for 2
Deadlines
years.
make things happen.
Yeah, they do, but, I mean, you guys are great and all, but I just really think that we'll be struggling over the same thing, and then we'll be right up on a crunch line to make a decision, and it'll be like other things have been before, where it's a little bit more haphazard, versus right now, we can make a plan and then make adjustments as we get closer to that. I don't have a problem with making adjustments as we get closer, but we at least gotta make a plan and work the plan that we have. I don't know. I just really, I feel like coming up with something versus continuously allowing people to languish is not fair. So, you know, I mean, but that's up to
Right.
each person individually about how
So-
they view that.
Just to shift gears a little bit, there's a.
Can I just check 3
Yeah,
things?
go ahead.
Just right
Sorry.
before I shift gears. We talked Bon Air, Saddlebrook to Wood. That's the one thing I want to say. We'll check the 5 Lincoln kids that are going to Horn. Does that make sense? Right, Steve?
I've got those 3 down.
And then maybe combine the 4 North schools together to define the southern
Okay,
boundary.
hold on. So we've got that, I'm gonna just walk down the back. It's gonna help me out there. All right, so
Everybody else.
you want this group to Wood,
Yep.
okay? Got that. Page. Come on here. Page 10. Yep, got that. Then, you want, where's 20? You want this group,
That's a high school scenario.
okay. You want me to run that though, with this group to West?
Yeah, we agreed that you switch that neighborhood to west
Yeah.
in a high school scenario.
Okay.
Go to Horn.
And then Horn, we got the South Kinnick group there.
Yeah. We'll double check how many.
Wrong map. Oops. This group right here.
Yep. Does that move the needle or not?
Yep,
Probably not.
yep. And then there's another one. What's the next one?
Well, the next one was go up, cluster the 4 northern schools together and instead of having individual boundaries, we'll have a boundary of the total north.
Okay.
So I do have a question. Is there a logistical reason to keep Saddlebrook and Bon Air together?
I mean, you don't have to, I mean, they're separated by water, basically.
Could you talk about
I
how,
don't know if there's that many kids even at Bon Air, honestly. I didn't think there was a lot of kids at Bon Air. I think most of them are in that Saddlebrook, Sycamore Woods area.
I think at Bon Air they get 1 dot, but I think there's a lot of kids because it's 1 address, right?
Yes.
think
Yep.
25,
I
30.
can tell you
Like
better
25, 30
remember.
kids.
Yeah, it's 25, 30 kids, but that's not all elementary. Some of that 25, 30 kids are in high school and junior high.
So I'm just wondering if, because right now you have, on the Lucas map, you have Bon Air and Saddlebrook included Lucas map.
There
What
were
if you
4
left,
elementary kids.
what if you left Bon Air, Lucas, and did Saddlebrook
At Bon Air.
to Wood?
I mean, you would probably be more, I'm just thinking about walkability.
Well, there's, from Bon Air, there's the sidewalk that cuts over right to Lakeside Drive.
Yeah.
There's a sidewalk that cuts over right pat, or to the
To the gas
convenience store.
station and then over, yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I walked that route before.
Well, it's why we look at these
Okay.
scenarios, and these are the kind of few questions that are, yeah.
It'd just be interesting to see what that looks like.
With both Bon Air and Saddlebrook to Wood?
Because Saddlebrook is in, it's all that area over there is,
Yeah, yeah.
is gonna expand anyway.
Yeah, because you end up kind of with the, yeah. So there's clearly some capacity issues when we look at these maps in a couple areas. One's Lucas. Lucas is Stern. One's, that one's at the top edge, but Coralville Central
Yeah.
comes, I mean, that doesn't, that's not even orange, that goes right to red.
Yep.
Horn is still strained, but Coralville Central's way over.
And that's based on 2015 numbers.
Right.
Is there an adjustment we need to make that? It just seems like, because I remember some parents saying that they're coming right past Kirkwood and going to Coralville Central, which is further south. And it seems like it's right there.
So, I mean, yeah, when I look at the 3 columns to the left of Coralville Central, we've got space at Wood, some space at Van Allen, it's tight at Wickham.
I think the reason it didn't pop under capacity is it stays flat,
Right.
Which school?
Coralville Central. I
Oh.
was just trying to, why didn't that hit the capacity radar? I think it's just because it's like 420, 420.
Now, keep in mind, there's 396 kids there today, from that standpoint, so.
And what's the capacity is the number? I had a, wait, which one?
The
'Cause
future
It
capacity.
seems like the future capacity has less. Or am I confused
What's
about
the
that?
other?
I'm looking at Coralville Central, but,
362 all the way across.
Yeah.
so does that mean?
So it's a little overcrowded today.
Mhm.
I had 422 students there today, though. I have a different number than you.
Oh, you know what?
Preschool.
No, not.
Yeah, this is not pre-K.
No, with pre-K, I got 443. I just looked at the number.
It might be the date count. It's probably the
Yeah.
date count.
I think I got it from
Remember,
the-
we've got a kind of a flexible population there right now. It's number 1 in the district for homeless kids, so they kind of cycle up and down. So it would depend on the day that the data was pulled.
Is there,
So is the 463 is what number? Because there's not anything on the side that says what it is.
That is, if you go up here, sorry, because I didn't pull
That's the
so
total
that's your
enrollment?
total enrollment for kids who live in that catchment area. So there are
Okay.
860 kids that live in the catchment area. There are 463 elementary kids that live in the catchment area. Right now, these are where those kids go to school.
That's why it didn't pop in our initial, because we were using enrollment.
Right.
There's a lot of kids that don't go to.
So there's a whole bunch of
Coralville
live in, but enroll out.
Mhm.
So you can go Alexander, that's Borlaug, Rural Central, Garner. I can't remember what the order is. See it up here. Borlaug, Rural Central, Garner, Hills, Hoover. So you kind of go Garner, Hills, Hoover. So you can see where the kids go to school. So there's about, 67 kids that live there that don't go to school there.
Mhm.
And remember those kids, I was trying to remind people, some of them are voluntary transfers, they go somewhere else because they choose to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
Some of them might be special ed kids, they might be ELL kids.
Right.
There are a lot of other reasons that kids may be somewhere else. They may live there, but have originally been homeless designation, and so they're still attending the homeschool they started in before they moved into the Coralville Central attendance area.
It's 15% of the kids that live there don't attend.
Yes, that's why it didn't bother.
Yeah.
That's why I thought, I don't know, it's a little hard to tell.
Right.
They should adjust that.
Right, I did live in for all of these.
Yeah.
So, I was just gonna say that that's a concern, and I get, so it's not as, so that 15%, okay.
Is there an option for families who feel like they live closer to Kirkwood to go to Kirkwood instead of Coralville Central?
The rule will be when we expand Kirkwood. We expand Kirkwood, it will be. That's
I'm saying, I just was thinking about, people were talking about safety concerns, they're talking about other things, and if you live way up there in that corner, and you're, you know, I mean, it looks like potentially a bus maybe might be going out there, but.
Kirkwood expands in 2020. Which is why I think we'll get back to this area in 2021, or, you know. All right, anything else in elementaries, or
Well,
you're gonna say something?
Yeah, the other thing I was gonna say is that I am concerned, again, about great disparity in educational barriers. If we're gonna, if we've made that a focus,
You talking about elementary, or you talking about secondary?
I'm talking elementary, because if we've made it a focus at secondary, it should be a focus at elementary as well.
Very true.
And when I see, you know, 50, 60 percentage point swings, now some of that is geography, some of that is the, you know, the municipalities, but you know, I think that in areas where we can ameliorate or address that, I think that we should, without doing anything crazy like the 2 years ago with the.
You get to choose a zebra stripe or checkerboard.
Right.
Do you
Right.
want boundaries that go from end to end in the district, or do you want islands all over the place?
Right.
Well, on that topic, I'd like just to throw out there for discussion at some point, not necessarily tonight, but the idea of sister schools again, it's been talked about in the past. You know, if you took something like a school like Man and a school like Shimmick, you made it one big attendance zone. First of all, there's reasons completely unrelated to the balance to think about doing it, because the class size efficiencies would free up some money that you could then devote to schools that are harder to diversify geographically. You can think about other ones. You can think about Twig and Longfellow. I don't think either one of those would cause too much busing to occur. And then if it does produce class size efficiencies, that would free up some money to, you know, be devoted to places, either Wood or Alexander, that are, it's hard to see how you're gonna bring the number down. Maybe there's ways to do it. But it's something I think we ought to at least talk about.
Well, I know that we had kind of, if I remember, I seem to remember Becky Furlong talking about pairing at one point in time. This was like 2 years ago. And that, I think that was in the context of the magnet school task force. Is that what it was? Do you? I was trying
I
to-
think it was actually before that. but
Before
yeah.
that? And there may not have been much energy to talk it before, but I don't think it's untalkable, so to speak.
2 miles just needs to overlap greatly, so everybody can walk.
Right, I mean, you couldn't do it in too many places. You wouldn't want to do it at big schools anyways.
Right.
But,
Because
those
it's
are the
busing,
two
it's
big
busing
ones.
costs that kills it, right? But if you walk to both schools, you're
So,
okay.
and we were talking this last night, for instance, at Garner, where there's roughly 600 kids and 3 different pods. It's basically 3 sister schools in one big building, right?
Sure.
So you've got the younger pod, the middle pod, and the older pod. They just happen to be under the same roof. There's some logistics to it, as with certainly any family with multiple children, when you
Well,
talk about a
that's
kid
the-
going to junior high and a kid in
Downsides.
elementary and a kid in high school, those are the logistics that were kind of the pushback, if I recall, the last time, was that people couldn't imagine seeing, they're having their third, fourth, fifth grader in one school and their younger child in another school. But I think anybody who's been a parent of a sixth grader in a K through 6 building walks into the full school events and goes, wow, those kids go to school with those kids? Or the sixth graders saying, what am I doing here? By the end of, maybe not at the beginning of the school year, but a lot of them by the end of the school year are saying, what am I doing here? I understand, keep my hands to myself. I understand, sit crisscross applesauce. I get that.
Plus, I think that if it were perceived as one school as opposed to two schools, I attended a school that was that way, and it was one school. It was in 2 locations, but the grades, it was K through 3 in one area, 4 through 6 in another. It was one school, just in 2 locations. So, I mean, it was all I knew growing up, so I didn't know of anything different, but my parents didn't perceive us as being in different schools. It would take some adjustment. We're not used to thinking that way.
Yeah, well,
And
are we
It
talking
takes
adjustment here too?
it's an idea that might go somewhere, then you would think, well, maybe we would draw the boundaries to make that work without busing. So it could influence the way you draw the boundaries for those attendants.
All I'd say is propose something.
Can I ask a question? I would really like in the future to see, since we're talking about for our socioeconomic status, when we have 0 to 10%, that also is read, because there is an issue, at least according to the research that we have, when the percentage is that low, that students don't achieve. It's research that I read, Hanover, or whoever that was, when they did our socioeconomic status integration, that was problematic, and kids didn't achieve as much as kids that were in a different percentage.
Is the coloring based on our policy 3J5? Is that what it's based on?
I looked at the conversation you had at the Ed Committee last time and just did a simple 0 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 100, so you got 2 and then 1 in the middle.
So just use the weighted resource.
Yeah, no, but red also is like danger zone, right? And green is like good. So it seems like, I think it's perpetuated a message.
Sure.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about student achievement, et cetera, our schools that have very, very low.
I could do it this way, so green's in the middle, yellow and red as you go out.
I'm just saying, it just sends a different message,
I
is
can
what I'm
imagine.
trying to say.
Yeah, you've got it. I mean, it's green in the middle.
Exactly.
Yellow and red.
Yep, that's an easy change.
This is changing something totally. But another option for Horn that I mentioned to Steve, which we haven't seen yet, but would be to take the kids that are already on a discretionary bus to Horn and send them instead to Weber, where there's a 200 student addition coming online.
They could.
Can we look at that?
Steve was going to put a map together.
Yeah.
Where are the ones right there? Where are
Go
they?
behind.
So they're,
Oh, I see. Are they at the eastern part of Horn though?
Yes.
which are
We're down
on
here.
us.
I've got to count
There's
the
some
number that are
question
bus
about whether
for
they
you.
would continue to be on a bus.
I got the count of the number of bus, but I've got to get the count of the live-in. So that's the one thing I didn't get done
Okay.
yet. I've got the number of kids that are on that bus, but not the number that
Sure.
live in the neighborhood, so I'm gonna find that.
I think I asked you a similar question, right, about that.
Yes.
Because we were talking about how they might,
Right.
if their sidewalks are built or something, that they
Yep.
wouldn't even be on a bus anymore.
Right.
Well, they're on for
But they
Because
are.
one of the neighborhoods that you and I were talking about is bus, one's not bus, but I'm gonna pull the numbers from both of the neighborhoods so we know what the live-ins are.
And the one that's not bused is the one that is recommended as having a bus for
Right.
socioeconomic reasons
Right,
for next year.
right. That's why I couldn't get a busing count for this year.
So I have just a question about the way the district would handle something. If, say, there was a comment earlier about man attendance zone and portion of man becoming Lincoln, and ELL supports and so on and so forth. If that were a plan, would ELL supports be in place for those students and families?
Yeah, we've been adding ELL programs at elementary schools based on the number of kids at the school that
Right.
qualify. We started with the schools with the largest ELL population that didn't have an ELL program and started adding the programs. And now we're down to the point where we only have a handful of schools left that don't have ELL programming.
Okay.
So where there are kids, where there's a need, we put a program.
So is there one in Lincoln?
There is not right now, because there is not a need, but if there was a need, then we would put a program.
I just wanted to check and follow up on that. I assume that was the answer.
Think of it this way, resources follow kids. So if they're Title I eligible, the Title I resources follow. If they're ELL, the ELL resources follow. If they're homeschooled from a special ed standpoint, then their special ed resources follow. So one of the things that we do, level 2 and 3 special ed, is we try to cluster them geographically in the attendance areas of the district, so that if you can't go to your home school, you can go to a school that's as close as possible. We do the same thing for ELL if there are not actually enough kids in the building to have a program.
Under the map proposed here for man, the ELL would drop.
It
And
would.
the SES drops dramatically from like over 50 to between 10 and 20.
Right.
Huge difference.
You also see a large drop in Lemmy while you're at it, while you're looking at it, because the Breckenridge population has moved to the new Hoover. So both of those schools have significant pockets that are high ELL.
So there's improvements in many areas here. It's just, there's still opportunities where they've been for quite a while. So sister schools, I want to bring it for the retro, I want to bring it back next.
I'd like to talk about it too.
So would it be like, specifically like the schools that you mentioned, Director Ludwig, would we want to see like building blocks for, say, Shimmick-Man,
I
building
guess
blocks
that's how
for
you do it in this area for that.
Twain Longfellow?
But why don't we come back to those conversations?
Right, and I just want to be clear that because you could suddenly come up with sister school ideas all over the place.
You could. It's
Yeah,
just
but really
2
they
miles.
work,
2 miles has got
if they're close together and small.
I do think it is part of this larger discussion in terms of balance. Because if man then now becomes between 10 to 20 FRL and is partnered with Shimmick, then, you know, I'm not sure that's really achieving what we're after
Right.
with that parent.
If that island stays,
But if
in
we
man,
keep it-
that would make sense.
Exactly.
But if not, Shimmick and man won't make sense.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. So it is part of this larger boundary discussion.
It's also something, not to, just trying to be uninhibited, throwing ideas out there, I mean, it's also something we can do sooner than 2019 if we wanted to free up some resources to devote to higher FRL schools in the short term.
Well,
I'm not saying we can do it in September.
and
but we can do
I
it in
I would be
2017.
cautious about doing, actually making those changes anytime before 2019.
Let's even just come back to that.
Yeah, let's
first.
circle back to it.
Like,
Yeah, and also the throwing money at the higher FRL schools is not gonna be the thing that's going to be the end all be all, how that changes student achievement. And I mean, and that's decades of research that says that. So I mean, we have to also be really honest.
Well,
Conscious
I
about
still
that.
feel like it'd be better than nothing.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying, we can put a bunch of resources there, but if those resources are not going to address societal problems, then it doesn't, it's not gonna make that much difference.
to me, there's resources that may help, but then it also puts skin in the game for everybody. What I mean by that is, if you have larger class sizes getting out of balance, then somebody there's an impact, where there's no impact today. You know what I mean? So it puts I don't know, risk rewards is the right word, but it puts something on the line for everybody. You know what I mean?
I mean, I just don't, I'm not hearing what else we're gonna do for the schools.
Right.
No, other than generate growth and work with our cities
Yep.
to diversify neighborhoods. mean, I still remain hopeful on the south end with on drives and growth.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to try to do, yeah.
But that-
But
that's
I'm
5-10
not,
stuff.
I'm still feeling like, well, reallocating some resources in that direction is something, if we can find a way to do it, I want to do it.
I don't think the schools will turn it down. I'm not saying they'll turn it down, I'm just saying that can't be the main reason, you know what I'm saying? Like, that can't be like, yep, we see some more money, that's
Well,
gonna change
okay.
this, because,
I think class size fairness is another reason. In the smaller buildings, you do get more outlier class sizes, and when you know, if you have 39 in a grade, you're not gonna put 39 in a room, so you're gonna make it, what, 19 and 20. And when you have a lower than average class size of your building, that means somebody else is gonna have a higher than average class size at their building. So just for that purpose, the pairing schools, there's a fairness rationale here. It
Well, I
helps
mean, I
you achieve a
understand that-
median.
that
class
piece,
size
I'm
in
just
those
talking about-
buildings. Yeah.
just more money is not the answer.
Right, that-
Is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, and we shouldn't look into it, I'm just saying the rationale can't just be, yep, we need more money and that'll make it all good, that these kids,
I
their
did not
parents are not.
suggest
Well,
that.
I'm just clarifying that, you know, if that worked, then, you know, people would be throwing money at really, really high FRL schools, like keep those kids over there, and I don't think that is the answer.
So, I was just gonna say, I think that that's weighted resource is potentially a short-term, very short-term addressing current disparity, but I think the long-term is more what we're talking about, things like sister schools or addressing great, 50-60% differences in barriers and back, between schools. I think that's more the middle term. And the long term, again, Chris, what you just mentioned is the action that we've taken as a board and we continue to take with the municipalities, and we continue to be appreciative of them taking us seriously, because we're the unique glue that holds them all together. We're the only entity that encompasses all of them and has any ability to ask them to do something. So, but I agree with you entirely, Director Deloach, that long term that is absolutely, or even medium term, that is not a viable solution. And it just encourages in many ways it encourages segregation in our district. It really does.
Well, I would say, I have to agree with that, but at the same time, unless there's an alternative, you got the segregation anyways. And as far as the working with the city, which I totally agree with, I mean, I do think that one of the things you can do to make, moving into the Alexander neighborhood attractive to people, I mean, I think the most salient thing is going to be the perception of what life is like at that school. And so to the extent that we can make class sizes a little smaller there or provide some other type of support there, it plays into that whole goal of trying to get people to move into that area, or at least not to not consider moving into that area, at least to put it on a par with other choices that they have. And so I wouldn't, I'd still be looking for a way to direct some resources there.
We're going to go to that next meeting too. So
All right.
it's on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy to end by 9:35,
I know, we can't do
It
it.
just feels so weird.
It's the rule.
but are we getting there? Anybody else? Other comments? We have
Steve, you've
things
got
to
some
bring back?
takeaways?
I do.
Entertain.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. It's a new record, at least for the recent history.